Let's get some analysis with Anton Fedyashin, a professor of history at American University. He joins us from Washington. Professor, thank you so much for your time. As with all wars, politics and propaganda plays an important part in whatever is happening. And I'm specifically thinking of this Russian soldier whose war crimes trial is the very first being started in Ukraine, and the fate of the Ukrainian fighters from the Azov-style steelworks. How do you see those two situations in terms of what both countries need and might maximize out of those situations?
Well, Adnan, you mentioned the correct thing in the beginning of your question, which is that this war is happening on multiple levels. And one of them, of course, is the information war that we've been seeing waged by all sides in this conflict. The young man who is in court in Ukraine has admitted his guilt. He's pleaded guilty. So I imagine that the case will unfold with maximum media attention to it, but the Russians will probably match it with their own trials of the members of the Azov battalion, as many as there are, and we're not sure exactly how many of these men and women who have just surrendered. So I imagine that this will be a slowly unfolding sort of court attrition battle within the information space of the whole planet.
Yeah, and this could be the one moment where Vladimir Putin may be able to point to those Azov-style fighters and say, you see, this is why we went in there, because everybody knows that the Azov battalion used to have links to far-right groups, but they are now part of the Ukrainian army. So here's the propaganda victory, do you think, for Vladimir Putin?
The Russians are going to milk it for all it's worth. You're absolutely right that the Azov battalion was incorporated into the Ukrainian National Guard, but its members have certainly not abandoned their extreme right-wing beliefs. So yes, we're looking at competing narratives about the justification of this war. Of course, the Russian argument is going to land on deaf ears in the West, because, again, we're listening to two parallel narratives about this war that have really almost no points of contact. And that's part of the tragedy of this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when you watch Russian state TV, you begin to understand, however difficult it is, how much aggression there is in Russia towards Ukraine and Ukrainians. But something might be changing. And I'm just wondering if you think that because people are appearing on Russian TV and beginning to address reality rather than fantasy and begin to emphasize the difficulties that the Russian military is having in Ukraine, that maybe the leadership and the Kremlin is preparing the Russian people to actually begin to accept some of the reality that we are seeing outside of Russia, because the Russians are seeing something different to what the rest of the world is seeing.
Then yes, you're right. But I think that the turning point will really be around the question of the gains in the Donbas region itself. Everyone in Russia is aware that Kiev has not fallen, that the Ukrainians are fighting very bravely and putting up a good fight. And by the way, I watch some Russian programs, and there are military journalists and soldiers, Russian soldiers, who admit that the resistance is immense, that the people that they are fighting in some cases are highly motivated and very courageous. What's lacking from the Russian state coverage are stories about Kharkov, but Mariupol has been covered extensively. No one has any illusions, including people who watch state TV, about the devastation in Mariupol. But so far, there is a critical mass of public support for liberating the Donbas region within its original administrative borders. In other words, much larger than the formerly self-proclaimed unrecognized republics until late February. And until that changes, the Kremlin will have just enough support to continue pushing, although narrowing its goals to the south of Ukraine. In other words, to the northern part of the Azov and just north of Crimea.
Professor Anton Fedyashin, really interesting to hear your analysis. Thank you so much indeed.